Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our president of Pearl River Community College to come and share his words and his comments with you, Dr. William Lewis.
Thank you, Ernie, and thanks to all of you for being here tonight and spending this time with us and supporting this event. We certainly welcome you and thank you again for your support. You know, we started this event several years ago, and there were 2 or 3 reasons behind, or the mission that we established for this particular program or this event. And number one was that we sat back and we took a look and said, we've got all these distinguished graduates that are sitting out there that have achieved on a big stage and have been a real asset to their professions and to the citizens that they served, and we need to do something to honor them. But a more selfish motive, quite frankly, was that we wanted to create role models for our current students and for our future students. And so I would say to the 5 folks that are being inducted here tonight, we're going to use you. We want to celebrate with you the fact that you have allowed us to honor you in this very special way, but at the same time, we want you to recognize that you now become role models for our students. And we try to enhance that concept in several different ways. Your picture will hang in our honors program, the home of our honors program on the Poplarville campus, and there'll be a real nice write-up about you and what you've accomplished. But also, we want to invite you back. We want you to come back. Now, all of you created a video in the last couple of days that will be maintained in our honors program library so that our future students can take a look and see the kinds of things that you've accomplished. Coming from Pearl River Community College, we told those students today as they met with some of our previous inductees, you know, here are the kinds of things that are the opportunities that are available to you. You've got to put the work in, you've got to get the knowledge, you've got to get the skills to be able to perform on a big stage. But if you do those things, here are the possibilities for you. All of these people came through Pearl River Community College. They got their foundation and their start through the college. And so the purpose of this event is far-reaching. It goes far beyond what we're trying to do tonight, coming together, eating a good meal, having good fellowship, and bringing the Pearl River Community College family together. And we think that if you look back and you look at the very distinguished careers that all of these folks have been able to experience over the years, the things that they've been able to accomplish, the lives that they've been able to touch, the difference they've been able to make in their communities, that we realize that we have some really, really special folks that have come through our college. One of the things that, and Ernie referred to this just a minute ago, this morning when we met with our honor students and they heard from some of our previous inductees, we asked at the end of that session that the honor students stand up and introduce themselves, tell where they were from, tell us a little bit about what they wanted to accomplish. And you know, our honors program, again, part of the concept was, and it was very selfish, that we were going to bring some top students to our campuses, and that those students would enhance what we are doing and bring other really great students along with them. Well, as Ernie indicated to you a minute ago, our honors program has just really kind of exploded on us. We've got some really nice scholarships for folks now. Those continue to develop. But today, when we had that opportunity to meet with those students and they stood up and introduced themselves and told what they wanted to become, I was sitting in a chair over to the side, and I sat there, and it was amazing to me, one right after the other. The very first one, Mr. Thaggart over here, stood up and said he wants to be the first man on Mars. He's going to Mississippi State to study aeronautical engineering. He wants to be the first man on Mars. Then 2 or 3 others stood up and said that they wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. They wanted to be chemical engineers. And it was really, really fascinating to hear those stories and listen to them tell what their ambitions are going to be. And so Pearl River Community College hopefully is fostering their careers. Hopefully they will be the first people on Mars. They will be the people who service us as we need help in the clinics and hospitals. But we have a great opportunity through what's being created here with this Lifetime Achievement Award. It's much more than just recognition for these fine people that we're going to recognize tonight. So I want you to realize that this is an important event, but it is much more far-reaching than just coming together for a meal, for a fellowship, for recognition. So I want to thank you for your support, not only of this event. So many of you in the room have supported Pearl River Community College in so many ways over the years. It's been an honor to work with you to develop this event and others that service the college. And thank you for being here tonight. I think you're going to be fascinated with the stories you're about to hear. But thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Now it gives me great pleasure to recognize our presenter for this evening's awards. Dr. Adam Breerwood serves as the Vice President for our Poplarville campus and our Hancock County Center of Pearl River Community College. If you will please welcome with me for the purpose of inducting our 2017 Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame class, Dr. Adam Breerwood. Adam.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ernie, and good evening. It is an honor to be here. If I can have a quick moment of personal privilege, and this is unscripted, but I couldn't help but think of it when I saw my very close friend and mentor standing up here, Dr. Lewis, who will be retiring after 17 years at our college. And I don't want to look over there, Adam, but I have to tell you, what you see is what you get right here. This professionalism, the enthusiasm to make our institution better. I have never been more honored to serve under such a esteemed gentleman for so many years, to take a chance on me at a young age and allow me to be part of his administration. And so in front of this distinguished group tonight, I just wanted to, I don't have a gift or anything, Doc, I just wanted to tell you how I felt. I don't know why, something came over me. But I want to sincerely thank you, sir, for what you've done for all of us in this room and for the creation of opportunities like this to recognize these outstanding members of the Pearl River family. It means so much to me, and I can certainly never duplicate the things that he has done, but I'll certainly try to emulate many of his characteristics. And I'm grateful, and I'm very proud. I know Ernie's looking at me saying, you got to go, you got to go. John, Johnny Carson was canceled several years ago, and you're fine. You won't miss an episode. I know. I remember the first time I saw Dr. Lewis coming to the cafeteria, and I'd been there just a couple of years. I was an assistant baseball coach, and I was sitting in the back with the other coaches, and they said, "Hey, man, Adam, that's our new president." And the first thing I thought was, "Gosh, he looks just like Al Gore." But then. Immediately after that, I realized, and I could tell right away the way he carried himself, the way he spoke to everybody, that he was a true leader. And it's just been a pleasure to serve. I was telling my wife, and some of you may have heard me say this before, but my wife and I, you can imagine during a transition phase, we're kind of running around and trying to do some things, and we're nervous, and at night we don't have much time to talk. And so we're talking, and I said, could you ever imagine when Dr. Lewis first came here, could you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that we would become so close? And she looked at me and she said, "Adam, you're not in my wildest dreams." And I knew at that point I had some other issues that I had to contend with, but I told that joke a couple years ago, and she wasn't in the room, so I wanted to make sure I got it in tonight. But I am very grateful for my time, and I know all of you. So if you will, please join with me in one round of applause for Dr. Lewis. Thank you, sir. Well, now to the matters at hand, and I appreciate that privilege. It's a great honor and pleasure that I introduce to you the 2017 class of inductees for the Pearl River Community College Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame. These individuals serve as examples of excellence within the Pearl River Community College family. Upon induction, their lifetime accomplishments and achievements will be celebrated for generations to come, and their legacy will live forever in the rich history and tradition of our beloved institution. Please feel free to follow the ceremony and the provided program. However, we will have a slight variation to the order of individual introductions. Tonight's first inductee is Ms. Carolyn Adams. Ms. Adams is one of 7 children of educator parents. Her father was a teacher and principal in Oak Grove. Her mother was an elementary school teacher. Upon her enrollment at Pearl River, the former Carolyn Clinton was a country girl from Oak Grove. She was known as the younger sister of Donald Clinton, who was the star of the previous year's championship basketball team. She remembers Professor Seal and Miss Batson as being influential during her time, and clearly remembers the role she won in Arsenic and Old Lace. She finally speaks of her time at Pearl River Community College and her memories of residing in the dormitory. She married after a year at Pearl River, but went back to school 6 years later, earning a bachelor's degree in English from William Carey College. She also holds a master's degree in administrator certification from the University of Southern Mississippi and has completed doctoral work. Ms. Adams spent 34 years with the Lamar County School District as a teacher, counselor, and principal, and also as an assistant superintendent. An education consultant after retirement, she recently was elected to the Lamar County School Board. Her list of state and national professional honors is lengthy and includes being principal of Oak Grove High School when it was named a National Blue Ribbon School in 1986 and 1990. She has also been active in community organizations. Although she did not turn her Pearl River major of home economics into a career, Ms. Adams loves to cook, especially for her grandchildren, and has taught them to set a formal table. Very good. She and her husband, Mr. Roy Adams, live in Oak Grove and have a blended family of 4 daughters and 6 granddaughters. Ladies and gentlemen, our first inductee of the evening, Ms. Carolyn Adams.
I am Skylar Taggart, member of the Pearl River Community College Honors Institute, and joining me today is Ms. Carolyn Adams. Ms. Carolyn Adams is being inducted into the 2017 class of the Pearl River Community College Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Ms. Adams.
Thank you.
And it is great to be here with you. I would like to ask you a few questions today about your time at Pearl River and then talk a little bit about your career path. Can you share with me a little bit about your time here as a student at Pearl River Community College and maybe why you chose to come here for your education and what influence it had on helping you establish your career path?
Well, I had just turned 17 when I first stepped onto the Pearl River campus. And we called it Pearl River Junior College at the time. It's since become part of a community college system. It was my first time to stay away from home for any length of time. So you can imagine I was a little nervous. And my parents had chosen PRC for me. And I will say that we used to call it peas, rice, and cornbread. but they chose it for me because we lived in the Pearl River District, and so it was economical. And I was one of 7 children, and the 5 oldest of us all went to Pearl River Junior College because we felt like, my parents felt like, that we could get a good education and it would be something that they could afford for all of their children. The two youngest were twins, and they came along a lot later. My parents had moved out of state at the time, so just the five of us went. Four of my older siblings had completed college. I had one that had finished PRC before me, the year before, and so he was on his way to USM. But while he was at PRC, he stepped to the free throw line at the state championship basketball game and sank 2 free throws after the buzzer had ended the game to win the state championship by 1 point.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was famous the next year when I came because I was Donald Clinton's little sister. So I had just a little bit of an edge, not just being 17 and going away from home, but at least I would have people say to me, you know, how does it feel to be Donald Clinton's little sister? And I'd say, sometimes not real good, you know. But living in the PRC district, a lot of our students in the area went there because it's really one of the best buys in town, the community college. And that was real important to my family. Well, I moved into the dorm, and you know, I really, truly enjoyed dorm life immediately. As we had, you know, you had to be in the room. Now, I'm speaking from 59 years ago. And so things were quite different than they are now. And so when we, at night, we had room check. Can you believe that? Miss Webb, who was the dean of students who lived in our dorm, she would go room to room and she would check to see if we were in our beds asleep. Well, that added a certain excitement when you happened to be hiding in a closet somewhere or under a bed. So we walked to the movie. We couldn't own a car. And I really am dating myself, but it added a certain interesting factor to being in school. I actually did go to class. And, you know, I learned how to study for the first time. I came from a very rural school at the time. I graduated from Oak Grove High School. And I graduated from Oak Grove when it wasn't cool to be from Oak Grove, okay? But, you know, I was a good student. My father was principal of Oak Grove School, and so he had certain expectations for his children. And he actually did a lot to help me learn to study at PRC because the first term I took home my first ever D in a class. It was from Prof. Seals, Western Civ.
Oh, yes, I understand.
You can probably, I don't know if that, I know he's not there, he's retired, but you may have heard his stories.
Yes, I have.
He was a great teacher. He really was. But it really did create a little problem for me in learning that I had to do more than just read the assignment. I only attended Pearl River for 1 year, but I feel like that 1 year gave me the confidence in my ability that I could do most anything that I wanted to do. Because I joined into campus life and with gusto, and I enjoyed being in the Glee Club. I was in the play, and you know, it made me feel like, the teachers made me feel like that I could do most anything that I wanted to do. And that was very beneficial for me.
Would you share with me how you determined your career path and where it took you through the years?
Well, I'm not sure quite how I determined my career path. I think you might say that I was born on that path. My parents were both educators. My father was a high school principal. Actually, he was principal of all of the Oak Grove schools at the time, and my mother was a second grade teacher. They had worked very hard to get where they were with education. My mother worked and put him through school, and then when he started his career, then she went to school. And so I was very proud of them, and we lived a life in the community that, where people respected education, and I liked it. I enjoyed seeing the life that we could live that way. I observed my parents' commitment to the students, and really and truly to their parents in the community. We lived on the school campus at that time, and so I lived in a teacher's home, and I attended every function that you could have at Oak Grove School at the time. Every play, every basketball game, everything that went on, I was there. So I just felt like it was in my blood. Mm-hmm. Let me put it that way. I was also influenced by some people, even more so than my parents. And I think many students are. They are influenced by their teachers. And I had a high school home economics teacher, and I really admired her so much. Here we were country kids, and I loved what she brought to us in the fact that it wasn't just at the time cooking and sewing and whatever, which that was a part of it, but it was doing a few of the finer things of life, and I was very impressed by those things, very influenced. So I decided I'll be a home economics teacher. Now, I will say that that didn't last me all throughout my career. The 1 year at PRC, that was my major, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. But after following in my parents' footsteps like that, they wanted me very much to finish college. But I had to say, oops, I met a young man, and I married at the end of my first year at PRC. I was 17, shortly before 18, which really I would have wrung my two girls' neck if they had done that. But at the time, people married earlier. And so I was out of school for a while, and when I went back to school 7 years later and one daughter later, I really didn't want to do home economics anymore. And so I decided English was what I would like to do because I love to read. Education was still where I wanted to go, the focus of my career. But I changed the major area. And then, you just, you change, and as you change through the years, teaching was wonderful. I loved teaching. Then I decided, okay, I have something else I would like to do. School counseling was coming on the scene. So I got my master's in school counseling. And from school counseling, I decided 10 years of that, I loved it. I really did love it. But then I decided I might could make more difference in administration. If I were principal of this school, I could make more of a difference. And so I was prepared, and when the job opening came along, I applied for it, and I got it. And then I moved from there to assistant superintendent in the district office. And now I'm a school board member. I retired from my active career in education, and I ran for and won the school board seat in Lamar County. So, you know, my career has taken a lot of twists and turns, but all with the focus on education.
Okay. It's obvious that you really care about your school's education.
Thank you.
What do you feel are things that are important in achieving success in your career? And please feel free to cite examples of what you did.
Well, I really believe that any success that you would have in any career is that you have a passion for what you do. I can think of nothing any worse than being in a career and feeling stuck in something that you didn't want to do. So I would really encourage any young person to have a passion for it. And sometimes we start out with a passion and it has to change a little bit to keep that up. I had 44 years in education in my career, and I'm still kicking, okay? But the fact is, I made those little changes in there to keep up that interest, and I would think every field would have that same thing, where you wouldn't just stay in the same area and maybe get in any kind of a rut, which I think you could do if you didn't change. But you know, you have to have a passion. You have to want to do what you're setting out to prepare for, and you have to want to make a difference in the world. I wanted to help young people. I wanted to help young people get an education so that they could provide for families in a good way. I was particularly interested in helping young women, especially after I married so early, so young. And that does limit females a lot of times, or it did at the time. So I wanted to make a difference with them, and I wanted them to be happy. And I felt like that I had things that I could share with them. So to be successful, you've got to want to do it and want to have a desire, a passion, and then you've got to prepare yourself, okay? Just because you want to do it doesn't mean it's going to fall on you, okay? While I feel like I was extremely lucky in my career, you know, I prepared. I became a teacher, and as soon as I started teaching, I started on my master's because I saw school counseling coming on. We didn't have one before me. I was the first in the high school. And so, you know, as soon as I did that, then I started preparing again. I saw administration, that I could make a difference, so that when an opportunity came about, I was ready and I could step into whatever that position might be. If you're motivated by making money, I do have to throw this in here, then education might not be the field that you would want to enter. I made $3,000 a year with my first teaching job. Now, it's come a long way since then, and you can at least make a living, but it's still not one that is going to be very lucrative in the long run. But, you know, it gave me a wonderful 44 years that I loved. I loved being part of it, and that has to be the most important part. If you want to make a lot of money, then you choose the area to be passionate in that pays a lot. Mm-hmm. Pays a lot. When I decided that I would change from being a counselor to a principal, there were only 4 female high school principals in the state of Mississippi, and high school was my forte. And so I believed that I could do a good job, and so I went for it. I was there, I was prepared, and my principal tried to hire somebody else. It fell through. I feel like the Lord was waiting. He had that job in mind for me. And so I got the job. I was an interim principal, and they said maybe at the end of the year we might not. Well, 24 years later, I was still there. So all throughout there, I had a loving and supportive family and mentoring groups, and all those things are also important for success.
All right. I think you've definitely made a change in the world you wanted to make. What are your thoughts about the 2-year community college system and the role that schools such as Pearl River can play in setting your course in life?
I can't praise the community college system enough. I think it offers high school students the opportunity to transition from high school into higher education, and it improves the chances for success. It provides smaller settings, more like a high school, yet up a notch. And the curriculum especially is up a notch. And it prepares you for a major field of study. And it allows you to branch out and try new things and see what's out there on the horizon. But lastly, I mentioned a while ago, I feel like it's the Best Buy in town. I think that it provides a wonderful opportunity for an academic education, prepares you for the last 2 years where you can really concentrate on your major field of study. I can't recommend it highly enough, and I think that many young people in our state would not be able to get an education without the community college system.
Well, I do appreciate you being here with me today and sharing this information, and congratulations on your recognition.
Thank you. They gave it to me and took it back. Gee, what an honor. President Lewis, when I heard you say how you wanted to tie this to students for the future and for their success, it just really touched me even more so. I really had not viewed the honor. While I was very, very pleased, and I thought 1 year, and so that makes it even more special for me. It's been a long time since I first put my foot on the Pearl River campus. I was 17 years old, and of course that was 29 years ago. Maybe not. Maybe I should say it was 59 years ago. But it's hard to say. It's very hard for me to say that it was 59 years ago. But over the last several weeks, I've been trying to think, what is it that I can say tonight in 3 to 5 minutes? And as I thought about it, I was flooded with memories. Wonderful, great, precious memories. And I really just hadn't thought about it in that way. It was, as he said, the first time this country girl had been away from home for any length of time. But boy, when I hit the campus, I loved it. I really loved it. You know, he referred to in the bio the dorm, you know, living in the dorm. I really took to that right away. I loved my roommate, I loved the friends around me, and I got involved in as many things as I could get involved in. You know, I don't know if anybody in this room remembers what it was like in the women's dorm in particular, since the other men. But there was Miss Webb, who was the dean of students, and she lived in the freshman dorm. And so every night she came room to room and did bed check. Now, to you young people, that I'm sure is quite amazing that someone would do bed check. But how exciting it was when you were in the closet in a room that wasn't yours. Or you were under the bed, or in between the two beds where they had pushed them together. And somebody would say, oh, she's gone, and she's over here, and took off and ran to your room. Okay. We also walked, we had no cars, and freshmen weren't allowed to have them, and we walked from the main campus to downtown Poplarville to the movies one night a week. And so Miss Webb drove her car up and down beside us to make sure we were not holding hands and that we did not stray from the path. Now, if you think I'm joking, surely there's somebody else in here that was from my era that could verify that. I loved being in the Glee Club. I joined the Glee Club. I tried out for the play. And it was there that I really solidified my love for the arts. And, you know, singing in the Glee Club, I don't quite, I don't equate it to what I do right now as far as singing. I sing in the church choir. And I know that there's someone in here who also is in the same choir with me. And I also sing in the senior ladies choral group. And there are 10 of us ladies, and one of them's in this room. But this group are called the Miracle Singers. And so if you would see us and see us sing, you would understand why we are so aptly called the Miracle Singers. But we love it, and we're very faithful, and we go sing anywhere that they will give us the chance to do that. I also remember making sure that I had my raincoat handy, because as I ran out to go to PE class, I had to put on a raincoat to go across campus because there was, you couldn't wear shorts. We weren't allowed to wear shorts. And so I could put the raincoat on and go straight there and back. Yeah, in between all of that, I managed to go to class. And I learned how to study, quite frankly. And my dad really was responsible for helping me to really learn how to study, because at the first term, I had a D, my first ever D in Prof. Seal's Western Civ class. Now, my girls are down here, and I have never told them that I made a D. But I did, girls. I could go on and on with stories like that, but I'll wait and let some of the others tell you some things. But I think you can get a picture of how I enjoyed my year at Pearl River. It also set the stage for me for the rest of my life, and it really helped me to get where I am tonight. I look out across the audience and I see friends and colleagues. I see former students, quite frankly, and parents. And I'm very honored to see them. So many people that I know and love and care for, and who have shown me that same thing over the years, have helped me along the way. And I do appreciate it, and I want to thank each of you for that. I could never have accomplished anything in my life without that. I told the young man who interviewed me today, when he asked, what is it that helps you to achieve success? And I said, for me, and for, as far as I'm concerned, anyone, you have to have a passion for what you do. You have to believe that it is important and that you can make a difference in this world by doing what you do. And I feel that I have had a passion for education. I love kids. I love the students, and I call the high school kids, because that's where I did most of my work. But I won't go through, you saw the information in the program. I spent, by the way, I had 34 years at Oak Grove School, but I had another 10 in the district office. So my career spanned 44 years, and then I did some consulting. And I went home and I said, okay, that's it. I'm ready to retire. I'm ready to go antiquing and go and do things like that. But it really hasn't turned out to be that way. I really didn't like it. Not totally. So I decided to run for the Lamar County School Board, and I did that last fall, and I was elected to the board. And so I am now serving. I'm trying to learn my role, and I hope that I can make a difference as well. And I'm trying very hard to be good, and I'm trying very hard to before this year, we didn't have any men. We had all men on the school board. This year we have 2 women, and so things have changed a little bit. And I am trying my best to learn how to be more of a business person, and I'm hoping that I can teach them a little bit about education. So we're trying to find our way to being a new kind of board. There are too many people here for me to try to call by name that have had an impact on my life, but I do want to point out a few people, if that's okay. And I'll do that quickly. At this table I have my husband, Roy, this beautiful white-haired man sitting right over there. And I have my two daughters, Jennifer Moore and Stephanie Elkins. And I have my son-in-law, Bill Elkins. And I have 3 of my granddaughters. And as they say, you know, that's why we call them grand, because they are grand and they add so much and enrich your life and make you happy every day and proud. Would y'all stand? Just quickly stand. Everybody, at one time. Stephanie is a doctor of oncology, hematology at University Medical Center. And Jennifer is principal of Purvis Upper Elementary School. In the table next one over, I have 3 of my siblings here. You heard them say there were 7 of us. And the 5 older children all went to PRC. And you know, my parents being educators didn't have a lot of money, and so going to PRC provided us the opportunity to get a great education, to have a lot of rich experiences, and to prepare us for the other 2 years. And so tonight I have with me my brother Sam Clinton, and his wife Mamie. I have my sister Joyce Rogers and her husband Robert, who's also a graduate. My sister Jean Guess and her husband Dick. My brother Donald was planning to be here tonight but is ill, so was unable to come. Would y'all please stand quickly? Just quickly. The 2 younger sisters are twins, and they came along a pretty good bit later in life, and Mother and Daddy had moved out of state, so they did not go to PRC. And I have a very special group of friends, and I'm not going to ask all of them to stand, but they're friends from work, mainly from the years that I spent in Lamar County. And they still bless my life every day. Nan, Kathy, Judy, Faye, Janice. It just makes a life worth living. It does, to have good friends that we pal around with still. Lastly, I want to thank President Lewis for his vision, and Mr. Ernie Lavelle, Director of the Development Foundation and Alumni Affairs, and the staff for putting on this great event. I'm very, very honored to have been selected and to receive this recognition, and I will treasure it always. Thank you.
Our next inductee, Dr. James Jimmy Barnes, graduated from Prentice High School and jumped on a bus the very next day to spend the summer working 10-hour days, 7 days a week on a gas pipeline in South Carolina. He enrolled at Pearl River that fall and played basketball for Jumpin' Jack Gallagher, earning his Pearl River degree in 1957. He went on to receive a bachelor's degree in general science from USM, and by 1968, he had earned a master's degree in chemistry and a doctoral degree in science education. Dr. Barnes taught science and coached at Leakesville High School for 3 years before coming home to Pearl River as a science instructor. 37 years later, he retired as chairman of the science department, but continued to teach chemistry. His goal as a teacher and chairman was to make the science department the best it could be. This is a goal he certainly accomplished. He served on visiting accreditation teams for the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools for 20 years and on the steering committee for Pearl River Community College's reaccreditation's self-study 3 times. During those years, Dr. Barnes served 2 terms as alderman and 1 as mayor for the city of Poplarville and was an active member of First Baptist Church of Poplarville. He has been featured in Who's Who Among Educators, was selected as an Outstanding Educator of America, and was named PRCC's 1968 Alumnus of the Year. Dr. Barnes and his wife Ramona live in Poplarville and have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Barnes had 43 years of service to our college. Please help me welcome him, Dr. Jimmy Barnes.
I'm Alex Cumbus, a member of Pearl River Community College Honors Institute, and joining me today is Dr. James Barnes. Dr. James Barnes is being inducted into the 2017 class of Pearl River Community College Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Dr. Barnes, and it is great to be with you. I'd like to ask you a few questions today about your time at Pearl River and then talk about your career path. Can you share with me a little about your time here as a student at Pearl River and maybe why you chose to come here for your education?
Well, thank you very much. I was raised as a country boy, and coming to PRC was a pretty big thing back then. Coach Gallagher had offered me a basketball scholarship, which I was glad to accept, and came down and played for him for 2 years. Learned an awful lot about the real world. The people that we lived in the dorm with were different from what I had been used to. The teachers were very, very good. It was different from high school, but I learned how to study, how to take care of myself on my own, and eventually wound up going to a few more places.
What influence did Pearl River have establishing your career path?
Probably one of the few people in the world who already knew what he was going to do when he started, and I stayed with it. I had an algebra teacher, a typing teacher who is still on some board here, and a chemistry teacher and a biology teacher, all in high school, who influenced me to go into sciences. So I started and didn't quit.
Would you share how you determined your career path and where it took you throughout the years?
Well, like I said, I knew what I was going to do from the get-go, so after graduating from USM with a BS degree, I was hired at Leakesville High School in Greene County as a basketball coach and science teacher, and I taught all the sciences. I mean, like 5 or 6 of them, and coached basketball too. I brought my girls' team down here to play in the old Shivers gym. We were playing Poplarville. Dr. Garvin Johnston, who was the president of Pearl River when I was here, was still here, and he came down at the halftime and hired me to come back to PRC as an instructor, which I'm glad I did.
So what do you feel are things that are important in achieving success in your career, and feel free to have any examples that you feel that are needed?
Probably my grandmother Bryant was one of the most influential people in helping me to understand to keep going, because you know what a huckleberry is?
I don't know what a huckleberry is.
It's a wild blueberry. And
Okay.
they used to grow in the swamps, and about the time they would get ripe, the panthers would get loose. and people would start telling tales about the panther screaming. That was to keep everybody from picking the huckleberry. But she taught me that when I got a hold of a part of a vine or limb with the berries on it, you didn't leave one on there. You didn't pick any red ones. You got the black ones, left the red one for the next time. So she taught me to finish what I started. I think that probably went a long way.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts about a 2-year community college system and the roles that it plays in setting your course in life?
When I came back to PRC to teach, the one goal I really had was to make our science department the best it could be. I met Dr. Barry Mellinger, who was president at Gulf Coast. He was working with what we call SACS, the Southern Association of Schools and Colleges, which was our accrediting commission. And talking with him, he got me into Atlanta to do a week-long, maybe, school to go as an accrediting member to help other schools become accredited. This has to be done every 10 years. And it takes you about 2 years to do it, so it turns around real quick. I wanted to see if the small community college, or college, junior college we called it then, could compete with schools in other states. So I traveled to southeastern United States for 20 years, 1 or 2 times a year. And they knew I was a redneck because of the way I talked. But by the time I left, they knew that we had something pretty special. In coming back and trying to apply that to our situation here, I couldn't do it because we were already better than they were. And out of those 20 years, I didn't find a school that was any better at preparing people than PRC was. That says a lot, but it's the truth.
Absolutely. So you said that you were Poplarville's mayor. What were some experiences that you got to have being mayor?
Some of them I can't tell you. I served as an alderman for a long time, and the information in the brochure is not correct, but I served 2 terms as an alderman and inherited the mayor's job as mayor pro tem for the last year of the guy ahead of his term. We were in the process of building what is now known as a bypass here, so I had to complete that. Then I tore this knee up the first time and was going to the doctor's office on my crutches with an ace bandage around my knee. We didn't have braces then. And these 2 old ladies are sitting in the back of the room, hard hearing apparently, because they were yelling at each other. And one of them said, "Ain't that the mayor?" "Yeah, I think it is." "I wonder what he did to his knee." The other one said, "I bet he fell in one of them potholes on Main Street." That's a true story.
Oh, that's
I can
funny.
tell you a bunch of them, but you don't have that many hours.
Well, I appreciate you being here with me and sharing your information, and congratulations again on your achievement.
Am I supposed to make the speech that's up here before me or mine? I can't read it without my glasses. You have to bear with me because I wrote a few notes using my glasses and I left them at home, so these are my wife's glasses. Sorry about that, but people who know me really don't know what to expect. So I'd like to thank whoever's responsible for this honor. I don't really know who the members of the committee were, and I didn't really try to find out. I spent a lot of years at PRC. I'd like really to start by introducing my family. This is our table over here, and my first wife, Ramona. I don't know if you want to stand or not. She's put up with me for a lot of years and has been really the backbone of anything I have accomplished. I'll try to tell you more about that a little bit later. Next to her is one of our granddaughters. If I forget a name, y'all just bear with me. Savannah. Savannah's a sophomore at William Carey, plays basketball. She's a math major. Her dad's next to her, our favorite son-in-law, and only one. And our daughter, Kim, who's an administrator in the Hancock school system, a math major. Our son, Michael, who is a paramedic for over 20 years, had the honor of picking me up twice. Once from a stroke after a shoulder surgery. And if you haven't had a stroke like I did, you haven't lived, because I looked across the room and I could see half of a lamp. It was vertically cut in half, and I knew something wasn't right. So Ramona called him, he picked me up, put a IV in my hand between the little and the big finger, not the next finger, the ring finger. It stayed there for 5 days. And that might be a world's record, I don't know. Second time he picked me up, I'd shattered a femur, which is the reason for the cane today. And no details on that. Who's next? Rebecca, our favorite homemaker, and our favorite daughter-in-law. And Dalton, our favorite deer hunter. He's killed more deer than I've ever seen. And Savannah, Breanne, and Tanner. They're both in the nursing program at PRC, and I guess he's going to be around for a while because I keep taking him to play golf. Many people have helped me through the years, and it's impossible to go down a list and list people that you've been associated with. Graduate work at USM was primarily done on the basis of what I'd learned at PRC. I came from a small country town called Oakville, as BG knows. Our lives stopped at Highway 13 on the east and Pearl River on the west. So we didn't have a whole lot to do except milking cows and tending to horses and plowing and that kind of thing, which you're not interested in. It's been an honor for me to work with or for 5 presidents at PRC. Dr. Garvin Johnson hired us, and I say us because I was coaching at Leakesville for a couple of years and brought my girls team over to play Poplarville in the old Shivers Gymnasium, that's the name of it, on campus at PRC anyway. At halftime, he came down out of the stands, Dr. Johnston did, and hired me to come to PRC. That was the extent of the interview. We later met with him, and Ramona didn't talk with him for a while, and I wasn't coming because you have to remember, in 1959, the first year I taught, I signed a contract for you younger guys who complain a lot for $3,100 for 9 months. And that was drawn over 12 months. So it's come a long way since then. But he promised to increase our salary a little bit if we come to PRC. And I was going to back out because I was making a little bit more than that by that time at Leakesville. And he said, "I tell you what, Jim, I'll give you a place to live. I'll pay you your utilities. I'll even give you $25 a month extra salary." I didn't hesitate. I said, I'll take it. And when we moved down, Ramona and I moved into a dormitory supervising 90 freshman boys. And it took us about 4 or 5 years to save enough money to get out of there, but eventually we did. I talk with the grandkids a lot about, I don't cut them any slack, let's put it that way. When they start complaining, I don't cut them any slack, because I can remember when we were doing the dissertation, we would send, well, it was just Kim then, send her off to the grandparents, and we would start typing. 170 pages, 5 carbon copies. And if you've ever tried to do carbon copies, you know how many mistakes you make. It took many weekends to do that, but eventually we did finish it. The SACS experiment, that I called an experiment because I was new at it, was something that Dr. Barry Mellinger at Gulf Coast got me into. I wanted to visit other schools in other states and see how we compared with them. Southeast states was our stomping ground in Texas. On 20 visits over 20 years, 20 plus visits, because sometimes I went twice a year, we found out, or I found out very quickly, that Pearl River Community College was very competitive with any junior college institution in the nation. I never did find out for sure if we were the first one or the second one, but we're one of the 2 in the nation, if you didn't know that. It's been an opportunity, or was an opportunity for me to bring back the knowledge that I learned in these places to PRC. I want to mention just a little bit about some of the students, and I'll try not to call them by name, and don't fall out of your chair laughing when I say some of this. I taught my wife and my daughter. Mike was too smart to take me. 3 or 4 of the pharmacists in Poplarville today are my former students. I went in for my last colonoscopy, and they turned me loose for 10 years, which was very gracious of them. But I looked up, and the nurses walking in were former students. You can see where this is going, can't you? So, the first thing they said was, "We're going to get even with you." And they did. I also am thinking about a kid named Billy that when I finished class every day, he'd been in class earlier. I knew Billy would be sitting by my door waiting for help. This went on for 2 years. I didn't think he'd ever make it. Billy is now a graduate of LSU. He either has a master's or doctorate by now. It shows you what determination can do. Probably the 2 most outstanding students, I did the pharmacy advising for the school for a long time. I looked up one day, and my mouth is dry now because I'm taking sinus pills, but that'll be okay. I looked up one day, and there's these 2 guys in army fatigues with beards way down where they shouldn't be probably. And they told me that they wanted to go to pharmacy school. And they said, this is Tanner. Thank you. He forgot to take it with him. Thank you, Adam. They didn't look anything like pharmacy students had looked like. They said, we want to start at the beginning, and I wasn't too sure where their beginning would be, but they said, we want to take basics, basic math, basic English, basic this, before we go to pharmacy school. So we started working with them, and to make a long story short, those 2 guys had ridden a helicopter down, and one or both of them had to stand in the corner because of the pain. They're successful today. They're practicing pharmacists. tell you one little funny one also about the game warden. We were fishing down at La France, and the game warden pulls up, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and I could tell you his name. And he says, "I know you. You taught me chemistry." I said, "Yeah, I know you too." He said, "As a matter of fact, you taught me 2 times." Now, guess what happened with the ticket? And at one of Savannah's ball games at William Carey last year, this gray-headed official came out on the floor, and he started bouncing up in the stands, and it was Reuben. I can't remember his last name, but I taught Reuben, and he said, "I'm not supposed to come up here, but I just wanted to say hi." It's like that everywhere we go. Former students, students who, for the most part, have been very successful. We meet them every day almost. It was an honor for us to serve with Mimi and Jim Monteith in starting the Blueberry Festival when I was mayor. They both passed away now. But that has been one of the most successful events we've had in the history of the town, I think. Somewhere around 10,000 people come in there, and it'll be coming up this June. Give them a little bit of plug too. Probably the greatest compliment I ever had was from a guy by the name of Archie Dunnigan. Archie was a PBY pilot, sub hunter. He came to work with us and spent a great number of years with us. When this will get emotional to me, but when Archie was dying with cancer, he told me I was the best boss he ever had. And I'm sorry, but I probably shouldn't have even said it. But he also went on to say, "You let me teach. You let me do my thing." Ramona and I spent a number of years. Adam had it wrong. He had the alderman and mayor backwards, but it was 2 years mayor and 5 years alderman, I think. We had the opportunity of meeting a lot of people. I remember the little kid walking down the street, and it was close to Christmas time, and all he could think about was, "Mr. Mayor, when are you going to put Rudolph up?" That one stuck with me for a long time. I learned a number of things over the years that are not probably what you would think of. I learned very quickly as mayor that things that were trivial to me were the most important thing in the world to someone else. And I could tell you numerous stories about that. But I attended First Baptist Church for a long time, and my idea of preaching is teaching. And I really enjoyed the years I had with some of the best Sunday school and preaching teachers I ever was around. The best sermon I've ever heard was preached by a chemist, not a preacher, and he preached it on the periodic table. And it ended something like this: the probability of the periodic table being developed the way it has is like taking all the letters in Webster's dictionary and throwing them up in the air, and they come back down in the form of Webster's dictionary. Which literally means somewhere along the way, the good Lord said, "Let there be hydrogen, 1 electron, 1 proton." Then he kept adding an electron and a proton until he got to my periodic table ended at 92. Today, there are about 120 elements at least. So if someone would like to ask a question, I'll take just a second and try to answer it. I know you're dying to do that, but anyone have a question? Thank you.
Our third inductee tonight is Dr. Thomas Holden. Tom Holden knew Pearl River when he enrolled as a freshman, and Pearl River knew him as the son of football coach Dobie Holden and college instructor Miss Alora Holden. However, he carved his own path as a student, winning a state tennis championship and serving as the first president of the college's Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society in 1957 and 1958. His first semester at the University of Mississippi was not nearly as enjoyable, but Holden persevered. Earning his bachelor's degree in 1960, he taught science and coached in the Natchez schools for 3 years before earning a master's degree from Ole Miss. He graduated from the University of Mississippi School of Medicine in 1969 as president of the senior class and a member of Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Society. Following an obstetrics gynecology residency, Dr. Holden practiced at Lakeland Clinic for Women in Jackson, where he earned OB/GYN board certification and served as chief of obstetrics at Baptist Hospital. He established the Grenada Clinic for Women in 1977 and served 2 terms as chief of staff at Grenada Lake Medical Center. Dr. Holden has delivered more than 11,600 babies, and he retired in 2007. He currently is a part-time physician at UMMC Grenada Wound Center. Dr. Holden has been active in professional and community organizations in Jackson and Grenada, also at Emmanuel Baptist Church, and obviously in support of Pearl River Community College. He and his wife Diane have 2 daughters, Jennifer Vickers and Amy Day, and 6 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, our third inductee of the evening, Dr. Tom Holden.
I'm Dalton Spears. I'm a member of the Pearl River Community College Honors Institute. Today, I have Dr. Holden with me. Dr. Holden is being inducted in the 2017 Pearl River Community College Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Dr. Holden. It's great to be with you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions today about your time at Pearl River and a little bit about your career path. Can you share with me a little about your time as a student at Pearl River and why you chose to come to Pearl River and how that shaped into your career path?
Well, both of my parents were employed at Pearl River. My father was the football coach, and my mother eventually was the chairman of the business department. So I didn't know there were any other options. So I happily went to Pearl River. I stayed at home. I didn't live in a dormitory. And so I spent 2 years that way. But I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's great. Would you like to share how you determined your career path and how Pearl River helped shape that?
My high school goal was to either be a medical missionary or a archaeologist. And so I decided to go medical. So I took pre-med courses at Pearl River, and then deciding that I would probably have a better probability of getting into medical school, that I decided to go to Ole Miss. My father had gone to LSU, my sister had gone to LSU, some of my cousins had gone to LSU. But I wanted to go to medical school, and it was the best option. So the first semester at Ole Miss was kind of a disaster for me. It was a turning point. I had taken a course, a chemistry course, that I could not understand. Professor, I was sitting in the back, and I never really caught on at all. And then I got some bad advice from the pre-med advisor to take 2 other courses, one of them comparative anatomy, and the other the toughest business course at the school. I struggled through those, but I failed the chemistry class. So I figured that my medical aspirations were going to be very low. I went ahead and took the MCAT, which is the admission test, and then I had an interview in Jackson at the medical center, and the doctor there who interviewed me said, well, he didn't think I was going to make it in medical school with what had just happened. He didn't give me any encouragement, so I talked to my dad and my mother, and I think collectively we decided that I would go ahead and finish an education, which I happily did, and I had a good time finishing an education in science. I got a job in Natchez at Natchez Public Schools teaching junior high school science and a biology class, and did that for 3 years. During the third year, I had an opportunity to get a scholarship to go back to Ole Miss and get a master's degree in the National Science Foundation. So back to Ole Miss we went, and then I completed that master's degree and did pretty well. And I talked to the pre-med advisor, and amazingly, the one on the campus said, if you do good on the MCAT, you're in. So I took first of all, I took the class that I had failed 3 or 4 years before, and I was walking down the hall sometime after the class, after we had completed the course, and the professor, his name was C.N. Jones, that stands for cyanide. That's what we called him, Cyanide Jones. He stopped me and said, I want you to know you made the top grade in the class. So I felt like that I had redeemed myself. So I was accepted to medical school and did well in medical school. Ended up being president of the senior class. Was graduated with honors from medical school. And then practiced in Jackson for 3 years, but got tired of the traffic lights going from one hospital to the other. And Grenada needed an OB doctor, and I've been there the last 40 years. and a lot lot in the meantime have I delivered.
About how many babies have you delivered?
A little over 11,000.
Wow.
Yeah, 11,000. So it was quite busy.
I can imagine so. That's quite a career that you've
Yeah.
had. Very successful. What do you feel are the things that are important in achieving success in your career? And please feel free to cite any examples that you can think of.
Always have a goal, something that you envision. And even though you don't go directly in that direction, make things happen that prepare you for that. So just like I wanted to go to medical school from high school on, I had that in the back of my mind all along. But I was happy to be teaching, and but when I got back to Ole Miss, I got the encouragement that I needed, and so I was able to focus on the goals.
What are your thoughts of the two-year community college school system and the role that schools such as Pearl River play in a setting in your course of life?
Well, I think it's a good thing for a young person to gain a little maturity in a smaller atmosphere. When I went to Pearl River, there was probably 500 or 600 students on the campus. You didn't go home every night. People didn't have cars. Some had occasional car, but mostly did not. So they stayed in the dormitories, and all the events on the campus were lots of fun, and it was a good way to get a little more maturity, and it was the most fun I had in any college endeavor.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
What years were you at Pearl River?
1956 to 58. A long time ago.
Well, I do appreciate you being with me and sharing this information, and congratulations on your recognition tonight.
Thank you, Dalton.
Where's Jimmy? There's Jimmy. Jimmy, you should be a stand-up comedian. But Jimmy truly is an icon at Pearl River. He's just been there a long time. And he was actually, I was 1 year behind him in junior college, and I admired watching him play basketball. And then eventually ended up Pearl River, and a long, wonderful career. And I mean, he's one of the highlights of this last 50 years, I would say, at Pearl River. Anyway, I'm honored to be selected as one of the inductees. We moved to Poplarville when I was 9 years old, 1948. We moved into Huff Hall. All the men athletes would know that that's where they resided, and we lived in a downstairs apartment. Dr. Tiernan and his family lived on the apartment on the opposite side. My dad was also the athletic director, and he was in charge of Huff Hall. And there were a lot of incidents that occurred upstairs, and we could hear the floors banging and firecracker occasionally going off. And Daddy would go up there and say, "Boys, y'all got to cut that out." And they'd quieten down, and then if there was another one, that would end it. He would take care of it after that. We had a lot of fun. But that was 1948. I remember when we moved into that apartment that the telephone was a crank telephone. You cranked it and spoke into it. If I recall correctly, there was an operator on the other end, and she would place a call for you. And it was always the party line. So you didn't know when you could get the line. That was very interesting. Ironically, Poplarville was where my father saw his first football game. And it's where he coached his last football game. So it began and ended in Poplarville. Carol, my sister, and I, she was 5 years younger. We played on the campus as children, because we lived there 7 years. I climbed every building, climbed every roof, probably on the campus. I climbed the water tower untold times. And I didn't have any problem going up. It was always, it took me about 30 minutes to get up the nerve to go down. My mother had been a housewife, so when I was probably in junior high, she started Pearl River. My mother was very studious, and in addition, she was smart. And she finished valedictorian at Pearl River, and there was an article in the paper that said that she had the highest grade point average of anyone who had ever attended Pearl River up until that point. She went on to Mississippi Southern and got her master's degree after her bachelor's degree, and taught at Pearl River for a number of years after that. Two of my high school, junior high school, elementary, junior college friends are here. John Hall, who was inducted 2 or 3 years ago, and Ben Smith. Would you two guys stand up? And let's give them a hand applause. We played ball together. Ben was the best, probably the best athlete, no question about it. But we all gave it a good try. Both parents instilled education, but they weren't pushy, and they felt that we should make our own way. They provided the stimulus that education has for our future. And obviously it was instilled both in myself. I went into medicine. My sister got a PhD. Education was important. We got that from our parents, from both of them. I'm grateful to have lived during that golden era, the 50s, and it was golden in a lot of ways, just like Carolyn said about the women's restrictions. It was just something amazing. There were no opportunities to get into trouble. I never had a drink of alcohol till after I left Ole Miss. First semester, after I left Pearl River. When I got up there at Ole Miss and joined the fraternity, I'd never had a drink of alcohol. And there was a party, fraternity party, and some of the guys said, well, you got to have a drink with the rest of us. And, well, it was more like a gurgle, just goggle down about a half a pint of something. And I was so sick. They helped me over to the dormitory, and I know they placed a garbage can there by the bed, and I just finally recovered later. That was the end of my heavy drinking period, that one episode. But it was golden years and a lot of friendships. My wife, Diane, is here, and one of our daughters and her 3 children. One, Lakin, will be 20 next week, I believe. And she's a sophomore at Mississippi State. And Cade is a 10th grader at Starkville High School. He's a swimmer. Their father, Brad, who's here, was a college swimmer. And so Lakin swam, the 20-year-old, she swam. She still holds a couple of state records here in Mississippi. Cade's swimming now. And then Addison, who's, we don't know, she may just end up being a cheerleader. She loves cheerleading. And then we have my nephew and my niece from Mandeville area. My sister, of course, everybody knows my sister, I think, Carol Holden Lund. And then her husband, Dan, and our other guest, my first cousin from Houston, Texas, came over, Rosemarie Barr, and her husband, John. And she spent a little time at Pearl River when she was a teenager and stayed with us a little bit at a time. And then we have Doug Daniels, and Phyllis, his wife, is Carol's guest with us today also. So I said, Jennifer, did I miss anybody? Johnny and Carol and Ben and Elaine. And so it's been a good time at Pearl River. My mother loved this school. Through the years, and she always spoke of Jimmy Barnes. Jimmy Barnes was always, conversation was good about what he was doing. So thank you very much.
Our 4th inductee of the evening is Mr. Anthony Walker. Tony Walker crossed the river from Louisiana to attend Pearl River on a football scholarship in 1974. He and 7 teammates were named to the 1975 JUCO All-State and All-Star teams. He was sophomore class favorite and was listed in the 1976 edition of Who's Who in American Junior Colleges. Walker thought he wanted to be an engineer, but algebra and calculus classes convinced him to turn his attention to the law. After earning a bachelor's degree at McNeese State University in Lake Charles, Walker graduated with honors in 1981 from Louisiana State University Law School. Go Tigers. He moved back home to Louisiana, where he set up a private law practice. He later served as assistant district attorney, retiring after 28 years. Mr. Walker, his wife, and their sons formed Walker & Son Incorporated in 2001 and began making Slap Your Mama Cajun products. Slap Your Mama Cajun products. I love it. I love it. It's very good stuff as well, which includes seasoning and other cooking items, apparel, and gifts. The successful business is operated today by the second generation of Walkers. The Walker family and businesses are active supporters of a number of local charities, specifically those involved in the preservation of Cajun culture and those which back the military and veterans. Mr. Walker and his wife Jennifer live in Ville Platte, Louisiana. They have 2 sons, Jack and Joe, and a granddaughter. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Walker.
I am Chris Crosby, a member of the Pearl River Community College Honors Institute, and joining me today is Mr. Tony Walker. Mr. Tony Walker is being inducted into the 2017 class of Pearl River Community College Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame. And congratulations, Mr. Tony.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Can you share with me a little bit about your time here as a student? Maybe why you chose to come here for your education and what influence helped on your career path?
All right. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for having me here. This is a great honor, and I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be back at Pearl River. Tell you the truth, I didn't know Pearl River existed until I was a senior in high school. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call, and it's kind of like, hey, you can throw a football, come on over. So I came over on an academic scholarship, and it was a great time. I had a wonderful time at Pearl River. It was a big growing up session for me. I was 200 miles away from home, didn't know anybody on campus. And I kind of figured at that point, if I can be a success here, then I can make it any place.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. It came to be a dedication. It was a hard time, but it was fun. I had a great time.
An opportunity to get your school paid
That's
for,
correct.
I believe, a scholarship?
That's correct. I mean, basically, I wanted to play football, and I was a lot smaller than I am now. And got my schooling free, but I also realized at that point that I wasn't going to make a living playing football, so I better buckle down and figure out something else I was going to do.
So, what you wanted to do as a career path?
Didn't quite know, 18 years old, kind of having too much fun, but got here and I decided I was going to be a mechanical engineer. So I signed up for mechanical engineering, and I took one chemistry class, one calculus class, and I decided this ain't for me. I'm not going to do this, and it's never going to get there. And so I called home and told my dad that I was going to go into pre-law. And he was kind of like, not too sure about this, but he said, you're going to be the first attorney in the family. And I said, well, we're going to see how that works. So, he backed me on it, and I was the first attorney in the family, and I'm still the only attorney in the family. So that's how it kind of went in that direction.
What do you feel are the things that are important in achieving success in your career?
There's a lot of things, but I guess honesty is probably the best thing, that's, especially in the practice of law. If there's a lot of attorneys out there, we have a bad rap. I was basically a prosecutor for 28 years. And, but it all comes down to honesty. When you tell the people where you're at, where you stand, and you back it up, that has a lot to do with everything. It turns into trust. And once you deceive somebody, once you lie to them, once you lie to the court, you got no place to go. And it's the same thing in business. If you're going to start taking a business path and you got to deal with people, then tell them the truth, tell them where you stand, and stick to it. And they'll respect you for it. May not get along with them sometimes, but they're going to respect you for it.
Great.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. The next thing is you better be ready to change. You better be ready to adapt when something happens, because not everything is going to go right. And once in a while, the wheels are going to fall off. You better stop. You better put it back on. You better tighten the nuts on it, and you better keep going. But it changes all the time. And I could tell people, I said, a lot of times I have a vision of something. They ask me if I have a plan. I don't have plans. I have visions. The plans change every day. And you got to do with the bumps in the road sometimes. But you got to be honest when you do it.
Yes, and I believe in your career you become many friendships and many enemies.
That's correct. That's correct. But you got to do the right thing.
Do the right thing. That's a gut feeling, they say, huh?
You got to do the right thing. You got to do the best ethics class I ever took was that you have to do the right thing. And that you have to, it's probably okay if you question it, if you can explain it to your mother why you did that. If you can't explain it to your mom, you better turn around, you better go another way. So that's about how it is.
And so the Pearl River is a junior community college, and it's 2-year. Did you spend your 2 years here?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Were you able to achieve your undergraduate in law?
I came here in 1974, graduated in 76. I went on to McNeese University and McNeese State in Lake Charles, Louisiana, where I got my bachelor degree, and then I took the law school entrance exam, and went on to LSU, where I graduated from law school in 1981. And after law school, I went back to Ville Platte, where I got all the Cajun heritage that I could live with, and started practicing law there, became an assistant DA, and became a career prosecutor basically for 28 years. So
would you say Pearl River set you at where you wanted to start? Did it give you a good start?
Yeah, it did. You know, Louisiana doesn't have a junior college system. They have grown to that to some extent, some of the schooling and stuff, but back then there was no such thing as junior college system in Louisiana. And I think that Mississippi had the upper hand on a lot of things, because I think a lot of more kids went to school because of the locale and because of the smallness of it and everything else. Ernie just told me that we probably had about 500 people on campus when I was here, you know, and we thought it was a great thing, but we knew everybody. So it was a good start. It's where I grew up, because I couldn't go home on the weekends because I was playing ball. It's 200 miles away from home. So if I got into trouble, I had to take care of it, okay? And I became part of the family of the football team and everybody else, and the professors and the people on campus. It was a great time.
I do appreciate you being with me and sharing this information. Is anything else you would like to say about, you know, goals, what you set your goals to?
When one person said that it's not a goal until you write it down. Before that, it's a dream. So if you want to set a goal, you have to write it down. And once you write it down and decide you want to get there, then you put it into it and you go forward. And it's kind of funny. You know, I came to Pearl River. I ended up at McNeese, and I ended up with a degree in history. And it was always the goal was to go to law school. So my dad asked me. He said, "What you gonna do if you don't get into law school?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'll sell refrigerators at Sears." Well, that didn't go over real big, okay? So that was kind of a bad answer. But at that point, after that chewing out that I got after that, I was determined that I was gonna make it in law school. And so I guess, I don't know if I wrote it down there, but then that was the goal. It was no longer a dream, it became a goal. So. And it's been a good career. I enjoyed it. Now I'm in the family business, and my family runs our business. My two sons, who are both up there running. It's very, very nice. It's nice to have those goals, and I hope they have goals for the future, and I hope you do too.
It's a great career. Glad to be nominated.
Thank you.
And, inducted. So.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
to meet you.
Same here. I don't know about y'all, but I'm glad to be here. All right. Been a long time since I've been back at Pearl River. I want to thank the president. I want to thank my buddy Ernie over there, sitting down with a big old grin on his face like he used to all the time back in 1996. So it's great. You know, I'm back at the Pearl River family. And by the way, I brought some family with me, okay? I got my brother Bob over there. He came to all the football games, watched us play. I got my two sons. I got Jack with his better half Candace. I got Joe Willie over there with his wife, lovely wife Tana, and then I got my lovely wife who's been with me for over 40 years and just putting up with hell. So I mean, it's a good thing. And you know, it was over 40 years ago that a little skinny kid with a head full of curly hair from South Louisiana showed up at Pearl River Junior College. I had a 1972 Chevelle Malibu. That thing was gold, had a black vinyl top, man, everything was good. Showed up over here, didn't know anybody. They put me in a room with two rednecks in the dorm. All right, they couldn't understand what I said, and I didn't understand what they said either, okay? The whole football team had to learn a new language when I started calling the plays in the huddle because they had no idea what was going on, all right? And I learned a lot over here at Pearl River. I learned a whole bunch, and it was great to be here. I had a great time. My Malibu learned how to go to Bogalusa on a regular basis, and I learned how to run stadiums. Because Coach Johnson used to make me run some stadiums. I'd cut class, I'd run stadiums, you know. I'd break curfew, I'd run stadiums, you know. And finally, at the time, I kind of, let's settle down here, let's figure out what's going on, and started having class and realized that things were going to have to happen if I was going to proceed in life other than just going to Bogalusa, okay? So I went to Pearl River yesterday, and on my way back, I kind of took a wrong turn. I headed towards Bogalusa. I said, no, I got to go back over there, okay? I got to go back home. And, but it was great, you know. Had a bunch of fun. I think Ernie and them kind of worried whether or not I was going to be able to play football on the weekend because Coach Arban kept telling me, now, damn, Walk, I'm going to run your ass out of here if you don't straighten up. And I think I got that lecture about every week for a while, but I persevered. I made it through. I graduated in '76. And I want you to understand, it's an honor to be here. It's fantastic. It feels great. But it's not right that I'm the only guy up here. Because everybody else out there, just like everybody else that's been up here, owes it to other people. It's a team effort. And you don't know who's going to influence you in life. And it goes way back. There's a lot of members to everybody's team that brought them up. It's the guy in elementary school, okay? It's the guy that you grew up with that stood on the side of you after a couple of wild rides and said, man, that was fun, okay? Because everybody contributed to where you are at today. And you, likewise, influence everybody. Maybe good, maybe bad sometimes. But that's where we at. You got your family, you got your classmates, you got people who contribute every day of your life. And you all know what I'm talking about. You can go back and you can think about everything you've accomplished and who was there for you. What made that turning point in your life that you decided to go into another direction? You know, there's always these little things that do that. Chemistry and calculus class made me become a lawyer because I sure as hell wasn't going to pass as an engineer. But I want you to understand that it's teamwork and it's family. And that's where it's at today. And I want to reflecting back, like they talk about, you know, you get an honor like this and it's kind of like, what the hell did I do? You know, I mean, I don't know if I deserve this. I mean, God, I'm getting called up here. And you start reflecting back. And it's kind of like, all right, these are the people that were there. And Pearl River Junior College was there for me. So, thank you.
Our final inductee of the evening, Mr. Bill James Jr. Bill James came to Pearl River as a high school senior in 1953. He was a starting quarterback for 2 seasons and also played basketball for the college. He sang in the choir and the male quartet before graduating with honors in 1956. He earned an electrical engineering degree in 1958 from Mississippi State University, where he was also a member of the chorus and male quartet. Mr. James began his career in the electric utility industry with Florida Power and Light, while also teaching evening classes at Manatee Junior College and the University of Miami. After 18 years in the utility management, he joined Kentucky Generation and Transmission as first vice general manager. He continued teaching at the University of Kentucky and the University of Evansville. He came back to Florida as vice president at Florida Generation and Transmission in 1980 and moved to Indiana Generation and Transmission in 1983. 2 years later, he became president and CEO of Indiana's largest rural electric cooperative, where he led creation of a business park and retired in 1998. Since then, he has developed the first energy cooperative in Massachusetts and been a consultant for cooperatives in Texas and Florida. He currently serves on the board of Seminole Electric Cooperative. James has been active in community and professional organizations throughout his life, including youth sports, church, and community singing groups and theater. Mr. James and his wife Daphne live in Leesburg, Florida. He has 3 sons and a daughter and 6 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, our final inductee of the night, Mr. Bill James Jr.
I'm Mackenzie Harris, a member of the Pearl River Community College Honors Institute, and today joining me is Mr. Bill James. And Mr. Bill, you're being inducted into the 2017 class of Pearl River Community College Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame today. Congratulations, Mr. Bill James. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you. The honor is mine.
Absolutely. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your time at Pearl River, and then a little bit about after Pearl River, your career path that after that took you on. So let's start with your time at Pearl River. What made you want to go to Pearl River Community College?
Well, to be honest, I was recruited by Dobie Holden to come in and be a quarterback. And it was a good opportunity to come to a college, I thought, that would prepare me for a 4-year college, since I was coming from a rather small high school. And I think to this day that's an advantageous step for students to take, particularly if they're coming from a small high school. To make that transition to a 2-year college is probably a little easier, and then they're ready for the 4-year. And that's the path I took. Thanks to the athletics, I was able to get a scholarship and that sort of thing.
And tell me a little bit about your athletic experience at Pearl River Community College. You were a quarterback on the football team.
That's correct. When Dobie was asking me to come to Pearl River, he couched it this way. He said, I'm tired of getting quarterbacks ready 1 year and only having them play for a 1 year leading the team. I want to get somebody that I can train and they'll lead the team for 2 years. And I think I was an experiment to some degree in that regard.
You were the guinea pig.
Could be, could be. And it seemed to work out okay, because back in those days, we didn't have platoon football. We didn't have to send people in with plays. The quarterbacks were basically the captain on the field. They called every play. And when you went up to the line, you had to call the defense to make sure that the guards and tackles blocked correctly. If you call the wrong defense, the play might not work too well. So you had a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, all that was kind of put on you.
Yeah, a barely 17-year-old coming in, playing with guys that had been in service and played on service teams in the mid-20s. A little intimidating for me to try to lead a group like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it was fun. I had some great people. I was a punter, and in 3 years, I never had a punt blocked. I can't remember being sacked. The linemen that we had were just terrific people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so how were those years? How did y'all do those 3 years that you were at Pearl River Community College as far as football?
As far as wins and losses,
yeah.
I don't keep a mental record. I know we always won more than we lost.
Won more than you lost.
The first year was very interesting because that was a stellar year for Pearl River. They were ranked second in the nation and had the opportunity to go play in the Little Rose Bowl in mid-December out in Pasadena. And to show you the character of Dobie Holden, he came into the room, the locker room, with the question. He says, you guys have earned this right to go. If you want to go, that's fine. He didn't mention the fact that had he gone, he would have lost his job. He would have been fired. This is the days back when Mississippi teams did not play against teams with blacks. And Compton Junior College had blacks. And for that reason, he was under tremendous political pressure, but he never mentioned it to the team. He said, you guys have earned it, you can go. So many of the players already had scholarships to go to Georgia and Auburn and places. They didn't want to keep training and run the risk of getting hurt, you know, and so they said, we don't want to go to California or anything. I'm sure he breathed a sigh of relief on that.
Absolutely.
But I just thought that showed the man.
Absolutely.
Because he was absolutely going to do whatever those guys had earned.
Exactly. It wasn't about him. It was about the.
Absolutely. And that's leadership. Leaders have to lead. And to be a leader, you have to earn respect. Respect's not something given to you.
Exactly.
And from the legend you know of hearing all the things about W. Holden, he was respected. Not only by people in the school, but coaches and people outside.
Right.
Yeah, so he was just a wonderful leader.
That's
A
awesome.
good character reference and image for the rest of us.
Absolutely. It was probably an awesome experience just to be able to be coached by him and throughout those 3 years that you were there at
Yeah.
Pearl River. So let's talk about after Pearl River, you go on to Mississippi State.
Right?
So tell me a little bit about you got a degree in electrical engineering.
That's
and
correct.
What did that do for you? How did that help you for your career?
Yeah, well, at that time, Mississippi State had 3 options for electrical engineers: communications, electronics, or power. 1958 was right after Sputnik was launched in '57.
Right.
Everybody wanted electronics or communications engineers. All of us, without the companies knowing what our option was, we had over 100 offers before Christmas that year. There was only 88 of us in electrical engineering. And so it just opened, I mean, that was just a tremendous thing. I'm not the kind of person that you can give a computer and put in a room and say, engineer me something.
Right.
Okay, I'm a little too gregarious for that. So I chose power because I had it solidified because between my junior and senior year, I got to go to work for a very large power company in Florida and ultimately wound up there. And so those kinds of events led me into power and led me to a wonderful career. I was very fortunate.
That's awesome. So you had a really good time. You were able to be right out of school and go straight to working, basically,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, in fact, I called them in early December. They had been on their regular tour around interviewing people, getting ready to hire them because they were hiring about 50 to 60 engineers every year. They were growing so fast.
Right.
And gave me the opportunity. I had worked for them before in the summer. I knew 2 people on the team that had been to state doing the recruiting. So I called one of them in December. They were there in October. I called them in December and said, hey, I'm getting all these offers. I need to get an answer from you guys. Are you going to hire me? I really want to go to work for you. And the first answer was, well, we got to check and we'll let you know tomorrow. First thing the next morning, they said, yeah, we're going to hire you. And I said, good. I threw all these things away. I keep getting in my, every day your mailbox is stuffed with these offers from these companies. So,
That's
so that was
awesome,
wonderful.
right?
That was,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's so different from today for engineers and such people, yeah.
So you have been extremely successful in your lifetime. Tell me a little bit about how you felt, what the factors were that helped you achieve your success throughout your life.
Probably goes back to what I've read and been taught in management books and those kinds of things. And I would say this for any students that happen to see this: take every learning opportunity you have. Be a thirsty learner. If you work for a company that has educational assistants and so forth, take advantage of it. If they want to send you to school, by all means go, because it just puts you more tools in your toolkit.
Absolutely.
And in addition to that, you want to have some personal characteristics that will help you. We are somewhat lacking loyalty in today's workforce. People are more like the professional athletes, chase the money, chase the money. Many types of work, and the electric utility industry is one of them, longevity will really reward you. You don't want to hop around too much, unless you're going from CEO to CEO. That's a different story, but within an organization. And you want to possess the characteristic integrity of character. And think about that phrase, integrity of character. That's extremely important. You want to always work and do the best you can. And somehow you need to be able to sift out the right things versus just doing things right. Because if you do the wrong things right, that's not good, obviously. So you want to be able to do the right things. Be very supportive of your bosses. Those kinds of things make a big difference. I tried to abide by those rules. And very honestly, I never was looking at the next job I was trying to get. I was trying to do the best job of every job I had at the time. And I think, for me, it worked well. And I think it's kind of a generic thing. I think it worked well for anybody to be a very hard worker, always be on time, don't fake sick time, and those kinds of things.
Right.
Be loyal, basically.
Do things.
Work as if you own the company.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's really good advice that you said. Even if you're just at the lowest man on the totem pole, if you do that job the best you can, before you know it, you're going to be the top man. You're going to be all the way up
That's
there.
right. Your head will pop above the crowd.
You talked a little bit about how you felt that going to Pearl River was a really good decision for you, and the community college system really worked well for you. Tell me about how, from going from a community college to a university, did you feel that it helped you prepare for that university? Did you feel like the classes that you had at Pearl River really kind of set you up to succeed in the classes at Mississippi State?
Yeah, I think so. We had a cadre of good instructors at Pearl River when I was there, and they did a very good job of preparing us for the next level. And I would certainly give Pearl River a lot of credit for my success at Mississippi State, coupled with that slight step to slight step rather than one giant step.
Exactly.
Yeah. Learning what campus life is all about and how much you have to study and those kinds of things in a little less competitive environment was very helpful, because when you get to the senior college level, you run into classes that are full of ex-valedictorians.
Right.
And so the classroom competition is tough. And I was unlucky in this regard at being in the classroom. All these veterans that were coming back on the GI Bill, a lot of them had done things like be electronics instructors at Keesler Air Force Base. And I had to compete with people who were asking questions about vacuum tubes, and I didn't know what a vacuum tube was.
Exactly.
You know? So it was a good transition. For me, it worked exceptionally well.
Awesome, that's great. Well, I do appreciate you being with me and sharing all of your stories and your thoughts on your time at Pearl River, and after that, and let me know a little bit about your career. And I thank you again for talking with me, and congratulations again on your recognition tonight.
Thank you very much. I'm very humbled and very honored. Yes, thank you.
Well, I have to follow 4 pretty good acts, and well deserved. First, I'd like to thank the selection committee. I was not only honored, I was very humbled to reach an award like this or have it bestowed upon me. Like some of the past recipients have mentioned, there's a lot of support along the way that helps you be a success. I can't improve on some of the comments that were made earlier, but I think I'm going to take a different tact. I'm going to go back to the mid-50s when I was at Pearl River, and we had some unique things going on then. Tom sort of alluded to them. I guess I dodged one bullet because Dobie was not the hall master when I was there. He'd already moved out of Huff Hall, where I was lodged. We could have used him because we had a character there that was nicknamed the Phantom. And the Phantom is kind of legendary. The part about the Phantom that I'm not so happy about was I was his target for a lot of his pranks because we knew each other in a previous life, I'll say. And the first prank he pulled on me was not anything too serious. I was driving an A model Ford, and I go to the mailbox one day, and I've got a big package, and it's 2 big, thick books. One's a truck and tractor repair manual, and the other's a second edition. What am I going to do with that? Well, it was a big joke. Shortly after that, I'm walking out on the practice field one day, and Coach Dudley Miller was the post officer there, postmaster general at the campus. I'm walking down, he's standing there with a gentleman next to him in a suit, and I thought it was a scout from somewhere. You know, we had those periodically. I walked down, and before I could say anything, he says, "Bill, what are you going to do with those chickens?" I said, "What chickens?" He said, "That's the right answer." He said, "This gentleman is a U.S. Postal Inspector, and you've got 400 chickens in the post office, and they take a dim view of that." So they got to have to auction them off, and the gentleman standing next to him said, "Well, they're just colts and roosters anyway." Shortly after that episode, I go out to get in my A model in the fall. I open the door, and the Phantom had filled my car with leaves up to the window level. So it took me a little time to get it all out. Got in the car and backed up. It wouldn't go. It stopped. I'm like, what's going on? I tried it again. Got out, went around the front. He and a couple of his buddies had lifted it up and hooked it over the post in front of the car. So, and you know, it had a gap between the radiator and the bumper, so I couldn't go anywhere. I got some friends to lift it off. The thing about living in the dormitory with the Phantom, he had a habit of taking our community garbage cans that we had in the hallway to put your trash in, emptying one, filling it about 2/3 with water, and leaning it against your door. So that in the morning, if you weren't real careful and open that door, you're going to be knee deep in water. That was kind of a thing he would do on a regular basis almost. Then one day we found out that the Phantom and some of his friends had gotten some cards off of the Coast Guard poster that indicated you would have some interest in being in the Coast Guard. Well, he and some of his friends sat down and made different kinds of penmanship on them and sent them in, and they all went to New Orleans. Well, the Coast Guard got so enthused, they sent a 5-man team to the campus to do the recruiting. Well, when they got there and found out that one of the names was Garvin Johnson, who was the president at the time, another name was A.B. Nicholson, which was one of our very old professors, gray hair and so forth. The Coast Guard didn't take to that kind of very either. You know, they didn't think that was very funny. Ms. Lula Webb was mentioned earlier, having a car. She was a math teacher and a dead ringer for Teddy Roosevelt. I never saw a woman that looked exactly like Teddy Roosevelt, but she did. Stop and think about it. Well, she gave the Phantom a less than good grade. So he proceeded one night to go out and jack the car up just enough where the back wheels wouldn't touch. And you know how you guys have been involved in that kind of thing. Get in, you start, and the car doesn't go anywhere. Rev the engine, the car doesn't go anywhere. That kind of thing. One of the things that he did that got real dangerous, he took about 50 cherry bombs. Most of you know what a cherry bomb is. Firecracker full of gunpowder. Laid out a towel and started pouring the gunpowder from 50 cherry bombs in a towel. Rolled it up with a cotton wick soaked in alcohol and wrapped it with a copper wire. Made a bomb out of it. My room was on the 2nd floor at the end of the hall, where the stairs were. He put it up on the 3rd floor, right next to Howell Purvis, who's sitting in the back, right up to the wall next to his door, and ignited that thing at about 2 o'clock in the morning. It went off with a roar, blew all the glass out there in the hall, it all fell down. Put smoke in the hall, looked like a London fog. And I was put on my slippers and I was kind of running around out there looking. Here come Marvin White down doing this, coming down the hall, getting the smoke out of the way. Howell and his roommate almost jumped out because somebody said, the boiler's blown, the boiler's blown. And it had jammed his door so much he couldn't get out. There was a guy sleeping across right next to Howell in the bottom bunk, Charlie Creel by name. It blew a panel out of the door and went right past him into the wall. If he had been sitting up, it probably killed him. That was a really dangerous thing to do. But to show you how creative this guy was, in those days, we had the old kind of locks where you could put a skeleton key in and lock it. But they'd put deadbolts on all of those, but they hadn't taken the mechanisms off from the old skeleton locks. Well, he found out if you get a little bunch of iron filings and put it where you can drop a little sulfuric acid in it, it makes rotten egg gas pretty fast. So he could get in the attic of the 3rd floor, get over to the closets, reach down on the top shelf of the closet and set this chemistry experiment up. Then he'd come down, wait till the people got in their room probably after hours, use his skeleton key and lock the door so they couldn't get out, go back up and drop the sulfuric acid in iron filings and wait to see how long they could stand it, because it gets pretty messy. This guy was very creative. My problem was he went to Mississippi State same time I did. And I'll just give you one example of how creative he was. We were both taking thermodynamics and we had some homework. He didn't like to do homework, so he'd always try to beg it off somebody, and I was one of his targets. And I got tired of carrying him a lot of times, and I wouldn't give him stuff. I said, you got to learn it yourself. Well, I knew that was kind of dangerous because we were in Old Main on the second floor, and you had not only old wood and so forth, but you had the transoms over the top of the doors that you could pop down to get more air and so forth. And we had a guy there at Mississippi State from Java who was a real nice guy. His name was Hubertus Borgillus de Neve. We called him Roy. So Roy and the Phantom decided that, or the Phantom did, he got Roy to help him, that he'd get even with me for not helping him with some thermal stuff. We had fire hoses wrapped up on every floor there because Old Main was like a tinderbox. So the Phantom got Roy to stand at the nozzle end, aim it at my door at about midnight, and he was going to turn it on and then turn it off and we'll run. Roy should have known better. Phantom turns it on, the water starts. Okay, Phantom. Okay, Phantom. Okay, Phantom. And you threw it. Well, you know what a hose does when you throw it. Phantom had no idea about cutting the water off. He just turned it on and he left the scene. So even at State, we had a Phantom that was up there. Now, that's a little different from the kind of campus that you were describing earlier, Caroline. Yeah. You all calmed it down a little bit from the Phantom. I enjoyed my whole life at Pearl River, no doubt about it. And I think, like the rest of the inductees, it set a pattern for us. And I've been a big supporter of community college as the middle step. Come from high school, community college, senior college. I came from a small high school. You know, we had less than 50 originally until I came to Pearl River as my senior year. Prior to that, I was in a class of about 40 people. When I lived in Miami, my two older children were in the Miami school system. All the high schools in Miami were 3 years. They had over 4,000 students in each. Both of my children graduated in classes of 1,500. That, to me, is almost unimaginable, that the difference in a few years. But being in a somewhat of a high-tech industry, the electric power industry has evolved tremendously during my lifetime. Electrical engineering, for that matter. When I went to State, I didn't know what a vacuum tube was. And they were talking about then, and they were talking about this new thing called a transistor, you know, back in those days. I heard something the other day that really puts the onus on graduating people now. It used to take 25 years for technology to mature. It's now taking 8 years for the same kind of thing to mature. By 2020, they're predicting it'll take about 1 year for the same amount of technology change that 25 years took only about 10 years ago. That is a phenomenal rate of knowledge increase. People graduating from college today have to be thirsty learners and willing to stay up to speed and read a lot and study a lot because the world is changing at a phenomenal pace. And you never know when you get the opportunity, certain things happen to you during your career. As the previous gentleman spoke, teamwork. And that's very true. I had an interesting opportunity one time. I was invited to go to a luncheon where Margaret Thatcher was a speaker. And they had a reception for her before time. And I was in the reception line, about to shake her hand, and I'm trying to think, what am I going to say to the Prime Minister of Britain, Margaret Thatcher? Well, I went up, stuck my hand out and said, she'd just been made Lady Thatcher, incidentally. So I put my hand out to shake her hand, and I said, "Welcome to America, Lady Thatcher. My name is William James." And she was quick as a flash. She said, "Ah, you're one of us." Opportunities you want to take advantage of, obviously, in life. I read the book that was written about Dobie, and I want to tell you one personal experience that sort of sums up Dobie in some regards. As in the book, it says he never liked to lose, and when he had occasion once in a while, he would always brood over that and figure out some way to get even. we were on a practice field one day, and he and I had a lot of time together to talk about the games past, and to put this a little more in perspective, some of us played at the time where the quarterbacks ran the team on the field. He didn't send any plays in. We weren't in a platoon system, didn't have a defensive team, offensive team. You played 60 minutes, didn't have a face guard or a mouthpiece. A little different football. And we were practicing, and we were running a play called 21 Trap. And we had a halfback from New Orleans by the name of Charles Isaac, nickname was Indian. And he couldn't get his steps right, and he kept messing up. And we must have run that play for 10 minutes solid. Well, of course, the defense knows what's coming. For crying out loud, they were killing us. So I changed the play without telling anybody. Ran the other direction, made some yards. Dewey says, "What are you doing, James? Why did you change the play?" And I said, "Coach, I thought," and he said, "Quit bragging." And then that little followed it. Those of you that know Dobie can relate to that. There are a lot of rewards in life. Some mean more to you than others. This award is extremely meaningful to me. I'll have to admit to you, I'm listed in 13 who's who nation and international types. And I'd put this above any of those, I'll guarantee you. I'm very honored, very pleased to be here. Thank you so much.
I do want to thank all of you for being here. And many of you have been here each year to help us honor these folks that have been inducted, and we're so proud of them. And it helps us to share with you the time, the history of the Pioneer Community College of Mississippi, of the great memories that over the last 100+ years of what the institution stands for. And there's a million more memories on top of what's been shared tonight. And everybody in this room who attended Pearl River, I know, has their own thoughts, times, what happened with them and what it meant to them. And so thank you for supporting these folks. Thank you for supporting Pearl River Community College. And we appreciate you, and God bless you, and thank you for being here tonight.